Hi there. Thanks for your interest in Plan Ogden. This presentation was first presented at public workshops on June 26 and 27 and will provide background on the 2050 visioning and planning process, provide a summary of existing conditions, highlight a 2050 growth forecast, and invite you to identify priorities for the long-term flourishing of our city and its residents. So what is Plan Ogden? It's our vision and general plan update. It's an opportunity to look back and to think about what we'd like to preserve or enhance, to look at our present and identify what's working today, and also an opportunity to look out to the future, to imagine what we'd like to become. Our current general plan is 22 years old. Think back 22 years, back to 2002. What were things like in Ogden? What's changed a lot? Well, technology for sure. Remember those Nokia phones, the colorful iBooks, iPods? Things have changed a lot. How about in our state? We were busy hosting the Olympics. Remember the volunteers' jackets, the berets, the pins? It's been a while. Well, now we're looking toward 2050. It's time to update our plan and vision. So what's the purpose of our general plan? Well, it's a comprehensive long-range plan that addresses current and future needs. It guides our city's growth. It lays out priorities, and it's an advisory guide for land use decisions. A general plan is made up of a vision and sections or elements that address different topics, such as land use, housing, transportation, public services, open space and recreation, environment, economy, water, and implementation. And as a part of this process, we're also taking a look at the land around our OGX stations at 32nd and 36th and Harrison, and the 3 Weber State stations. Plan Ogden is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to together look down the road a ways. We can ask questions like, what are our opportunities? What are our issues? And what do we want Ogden to become? And we're beginning with visioning, looking out to 2050. That's 26 years out. How old will you be in 2050? If you have children, how old will they be? So why do we do visioning? Well, to explore the long-term consequences of the choices we make now. The choices we make impact our kids, future generations. And we also want to be proactive. Just as we plan for the future of our families, together we can plan for the future of our community. And we're working with an advisory committee on this process. You can see those on the General Plan Committee and those on the Station Area Plan Committee. Importantly, this is a public process. We'll provide research and information to the public. We'll seek broad public input throughout. We'll build vision directly from public feedback. We'll use transparent methods throughout, so you see a connection between what you say at one meeting and what we bring back at the next meeting. And we hope that builds momentum for our implementation. And the premise of this project is this, that the public has a right to choose its future, that public officials should serve that vision, and that the public will make good choices if presented with real options, especially options they help create. While this is a public process, it's also a scenarios process. So we'll be exploring the choices we could make today and their long-term consequences. These are scenarios or alternatives from a different city's process, but the idea is the same. We'll take a look at a trend scenario or a 2050 baseline projection to see generally where we might be headed, and then we'll create alternative scenarios from your ideas. And we believe we will arrive together at a vision that only captures the spirit of our city, but that it will also be practical, because the process will identify, honor, and address your values, your big ideas, and issues. It will yield a vision picture, a vision statement, and a set of guiding principles. And that vision statement and those guiding principles will guide our general plan development. They will become a standard to weigh current decisions against, And all along the way, we can ask, are we becoming what we said we want to become? The visioning process is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to look at the entire city together and imagine our future. And here are our key milestones. We'll be brainstorming together this summer, and we're learning from you. Your ideas will inform alternative 2050 scenarios, which you'll get to evaluate this fall. And that will help us arrive at a vision together, which we'll celebrate this winter as we move into implementation, which includes drafting and adopting the general plan and also policy updates. Note that the city is working on updating its codes concurrent to this process, so the vision, general plan, and policy will be aligned. But now let's take a look at some of Ogden's current conditions. Take a look at race and ethnicity. A range of races are represented, but we are 88% white. However, when we look at ethnicity, our diversity becomes more apparent. 30% of us identify as Hispanic, and about 55% of our school population is Hispanic, so we're becoming even more diverse. 22% speak a language other than English, so there's a richness here. We are more diverse than the rest of the state, and we can celebrate that. It's also interesting to look at our housing stock. Note that 40% of our residential buildings have been built before 1950, and you can see where those buildings are in the blue on the map. Thinking about what we would like to see in established neighborhoods is a part of this process. It's also interesting to look at housing costs. The median monthly mortgage is about $1,500 a month, leaving 27% of homeowners cost burdened. Median rent is about $1,100 a month, and 41% of renters are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. And that $1,100 rent number is a 2018 to 2022 5-year average. When we look at 2022 only, rent averages $1,380 and costs continue to rise. Compared to the state, financially it's slightly harder to be a homeowner in Ogden and slightly easier to be a renter. It's also interesting to look at what people make. Median household income is about $66,000. Per capita income or per person is about $31,000. The poverty rate in Ogden is 12%, a bit higher if you're younger, a bit lower if you're older. Compared to the rest of our state, poverty rates are higher and we make quite a bit less money. And it's helpful to bring income and housing together. In Ogden, our median income household looking to buy a house today can afford a home that costs about $257,000 or a mortgage of about $1,500 a month. However, the median home sales price, at least in Weber County, is $422,000. The income needed to purchase a home at that price is $113,000 a year. It begs the question, especially if you're a homeowner, if you had to buy your home today, could you afford to do so? What opportunities can we provide to those who are just starting out? And these are our city's major industries. You see manufacturing, public administration, healthcare and social assistance, retail trade, and education services. And we've experienced robust growth, more than 15% in the last 5 years. And our industries are somewhat similar to the state's top 5, though public administration and healthcare and social services are in our top 5 and not the state's. And when you look at our major employers, you can see why, with the IRS and the hospital at the top of the list. 25% of our workers leave the county for work while the rest of us stay closer to home. And our travel time to work is about 20 minutes. We are also rich with historic resources, including 54 listed on the local historic register and 27 listed nationally. We also have a lot of parks and recreational areas with a goal of more. We have 40 park locations with a variety of amenities. And here's an aerial photo of our city, much like what you can see on your phone. And here's another interesting way to look at Ogden. This map shows existing land uses. Most of the map is yellow, that's housing. You can see the grays and blues to the west, that's industrial and manufacturing. The purple to the east represents institutional buildings at Weber State, and the pink mixed-use areas are downtown. So that was a look at current conditions. Now let's look toward a baseline projection, or what things might be like by 2050. It's helpful to note areas that are likely to develop or redevelop. You can see the red areas that are vacant are likely to fill in, and also the yellow areas that are likely to redevelop. Most of these areas are lands where the land value is higher than the building value. That equation makes redevelopment more likely. It's also helpful to see where the gateways into our city are, as well as major corridors. These areas are highly visible and make good candidates for change over time. It's interesting that when you put these two maps together, many spaces overlap. And here you can see that on the third map, spaces that are more likely to see change between now and 2050. Most of the city is stable and will likely see little change, but it's helpful to see where change is more likely when looking together toward 2050. So here's our 2050 population forecast. There's a lot on this map. The larger dots represent more growth. The numbers to focus on are in blue. We're likely to see 16,000 to 18,000 new residents. That means about 10,000 to 15,000 new households. And on the job side, we're likely to see between 11,000 and 21,000 new jobs, depending on whether we're looking at a more conservative forecast or a higher growth forecast. I mentioned before that we're also looking at several OGX station areas. Here we may see about 1,000 to 1,600 new people, 600 to 800 new households, and 600 to 1,200 new jobs along the line and concentrated at Weber State. It's helpful to think about where we might be headed and where we want to be headed. Because if you don't know where you're going, then any old road will do. It's important that we figure out together what we want our city to be like by 2050. And that's where you come in. We want to learn from you. Look for the survey at planogden.com. Spend a few minutes letting us know what you think matters most, what you envision for Ogden's future. Add your thoughts to the idea map on the website. Your voice matters. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to look at our city, identify a shared vision, and chart a course to get there. So please share your thoughts. And what's next? After brainstorming together as a community this summer, we'll be creating a range of 2050 concepts or scenarios informed by ideas from the public. We'll reconvene this fall, and you'll have an opportunity to evaluate the scenarios and let us know what you think. So please spread the word. We need to hear from as many people as possible in order to create a shared vision and identify common ground. Thanks again for your time and your love for your city.